I knew there was a meeting and then someone said, who it was.
Good morning, everyone. Can I request everyone to please take a seat? Good morning. We are about to start the session. Unfortunately, we are running behind the schedule almost by an hour, so we will be really quick now. So can I just request to close the door and start the session? Without really getting into the formalities, I would like to invite the moderator for the today's session, Rekha Day, who is the National Coordinator for ESOP in India. And I think I will hand over the mic and the proceedings to Rekha.
Thank you, Devda. So quickly introducing the panel. We are really running behind the schedule, so I'm being very brief in presenting my panelists. We have Mr. Franz Gassler, Executive Director and co-founder of Yuva, on my left-hand side. Mr. Arunav Chaudhary, sports journalist, football consultant, and he's one of the eminent football contributors and runs as the founder of the IndianFootball.com. Ilya Van Holstein, he's the manager of Craft Courts, Johan Craft Foundation. Dr. Abhijit Barse, CEO of Slum Soccer, and Mr. Paul Shattendal, Chairman of the Delhi Youth League. We have quite a lot to discuss actually in this session. So I'm first inviting Franz to present, and then we will move forward with the other panelists, and then we will have sufficient time for a question-and-answer session. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Rekha. I'm going to try to be a little bit brief as well, because what I actually wanted to do was set up a good Q&A for two players from UA, Nita and Renu, who come with us right now. There's not room on stage for them, but I'm going to get off stage and give them my seat in a little while. 7 years ago I came to India, and 5 years ago I moved into a tribal village out in a state called Jharkhand, which is known for ranking worst in India for human trafficking and child marriage. It's a very tough place to be a woman and to grow up a girl. We started playing football on the advice of a 12-year-old girl who said she wanted to play. Up until that point, I had never really played football. I actually played ice hockey. I was a ski coach back in the US and did judo. I didn't think at that point that 5.5 years later I'd still be living in a tribal village, Jharkhand, that 600 girls would have come through our program, and that we'd have a daily 150 girls coming every single day to learn English, computers, math, science, and football, and that I'd be able to see these girls actually become youth icons in India, where last year they were seen by over 200 million people. This is just a bit of a session in our backyard. Space is a bit of an issue for us, which we'll talk about a little bit later. These are the girls in Spain, and then this is them last year. We're going to need a little sound on this though.
Triumph of human spirit against all odds. And these girls have fought at...
Yeah, I think that was good. Let's try that again. Okay, and so this is this slide I was actually going for after talking about these girls as youth icons. So they've inspired a lot of people and been seen by hundreds of millions last year after they placed third in the tournament in Spain. Here's a couple seconds of that story.
It's a story of triumph of human spirit against all odds. And these girls have fought against prejudice and gender discrimination, slapped, kicked, and made to sweep floors by the bureaucrats in Jharkhand's Panchayat.
It is simultaneously a story of how elitist, how unfair, how cruel our society can be. But it is also a story of how if people, and sometimes children, decide to fight the odds, they can in fact become anything they dream of.
We are very proud of you, Rinki.
Thank you.
आप सबको कह दीजिए.
Thank you.
I'm extremely happy and thrilled, and I hope there are more cases like this, because I also do believe sports is something which is a huge equalizer. I think it should become a national movement now.
So after the girls, here's our friend Novi Kapadia, who's the girls have become advocates almost unintentionally for girls' rights, and also for making some positive changes in the way that we deal with young athletes, from the local government to the associations to just us as coaches in general. And I think that when I was asked to speak at this conference today, Pratik asked me to talk in specifics because he said the audience was going to be different than the audience that I've spoken to for 3 or 4 years. And so I've got a couple of recommendations just based on what we've actually experienced from having girls in UA abused by local government officials for trying to go get their birth certificates, to being slapped around on the Indian national team, and even within our own program where we had a male coach who was starting to have an inappropriate relationship with a female player, and we had to deal with that. So I think that something that really stuck with me from a Magic Bus conference, I think 3 years ago, was from an Irish professor who's been advising Magic Bus, and he said that sport really is no magic wand or silver bullet, that it can be used for good or evil, that it doesn't have intrinsic value unless we use it as an environment to make safe spaces and make a positive place where kids can develop. And that's what this is about, and this is what I want the girls to speak about in the Q&A. I want to go into a specific story here about, everybody talks about making partnerships, and so here's one attempt at a partnership that we're working through, and you can make your own opinion about it. The girls were in all the newspapers, front page and full page, and they were mocked by, in a good way, by the media, and also by politicians who were looking for, some were looking for photo ops and other things. So here's one where the Rural Development Minister came and promised land and a bus. And then this is the MOU that we got back after much discussion. It was all about, nothing in the MOU about developing the players, which is what we're after. It was all about bringing glory to the state. And so I was a little bit confused by that, and I sent a message, which didn't really get a response, and then this is the response I got about a month later. This is from the Rural Development Minister. Apparently didn't read what I talked about, which is that the girls had faced abuse and whatnot. This is from a meeting with a roundtable on girls football, where I talked about why it is that we wanted the girls to participate on state and national teams, and I think that Subrat and I have talked about this, and he's, I think, one of the young people working really hard to draft child protection policies into the AIFF, and so I'm looking forward to positive changes there. But at this point, when I recommended that the AIFF simply ask kids what was their experience like on the national teams, because our kids have been physically abused on those teams, his response, according to the minutes of this meeting by the AIFF, was they didn't think it was relevant at this point. I mean, in terms of reporting back, is something I don't know whether that is relevant here. I don't know why. So I wrote a letter back to the Rural Development Minister, talking about child safety, saying I wanted to work together, but we had to wait for some positive changes to be made. We made complaints, but no action was taken. And that there are indicators of giving us land for this development center where the girls be drafted onto the state teams. I said we have no control over that because it has nothing to do with merit. It's all about who the Deputy Chief Minister wants to have on the team. I know that because I've been a selector on these teams. So I said our shared interest of child safety and youth development, I'm sure we can find some common ground on this. Then this is the email I get back. Don't be so paternalistic and morally superior. So I was a little bit bewildered. I haven't responded yet. But I want to say what happens if we do use sport to create these safe spaces like we're all talking about? What are the kind of results that we get? Here's one. Here's a girl from UA speaking in front of 1,200 people in Bombay.
The trip to Spain was the first time I had gone so far from home. It was first time that I played in big ground and turf. The other girls are very big and very good players. We lost our first match, but we wanted to win, so we worked even harder. We felt confident and supported each other. We won third place bronze trophy and we felt so proud. In Spain, I saw that girls and boys were same. There was no differences. They did everything that boys do. They went everywhere that boys go, even at night. I thought this was very good. Like the boys.
So how do we make that happen? I think my staff and I, we talked about this a lot, and we came up with with 3 ideas. I know a lot of you are from out of country and looking to create partnerships with associations, potentially with government, with NGOs. And I think that there are 3 really critical things that you keep in mind to make good partnerships. And people who are giving away awards, this goes for you as well. Visit your prospective partners. It's funny how many awards I get without anybody ever coming by to see what it is we're doing. There are a few awards where they actually have come by, but it's absolutely mind-boggling. And I think it's the same thing for partnerships. Go and see what your partners are doing, stay with them, send somebody to stay with them for 6 months to see what they're doing and see if that's actually somebody that you want to work with, and what is it that they're doing well and can be doing better, so you can work together. And number 2 is really important. This goes for us internally. It goes for associations. Demand accountability where the loudest voice is the kids, not the sports politicians, and not the office staff. Number 3 is intensity is key. I never cared much about football, and so I thought it was going to be something that we did once or twice a week. But the girls cared about it much more than the boys, actually, which is why we mostly work with girls. And they were the ones who said that they wanted to do it every single day. They were the ones who said they wanted harder practices. So I had to learn how to do that and how to train other people to do that. Everybody has life skills curriculums on paper, but changing beliefs is what we're after in the long run, not just behavior, because somebody might come to your organization and have a change in behavior for a couple of hours, and then you don't see them again for a couple of weeks. So again, intensity is key. You've got to be with them as much as possible, as much as they want to be working with you. I'm going to introduce a couple of people. I'm going to get off the stage. These girls are going to get on the stage and take your questions and answers. Ask them something about their experience, please, of playing on different teams, and do they feel safe in sport. Ask whatever you want. Rekha they can talk in English, or Rekha can do the translation. This is Nita. She's been around forever, 5.5 years. This is her today. She was the vice captain of the team going to Spain. This is Renu, originally a defender. Stepped up as a goalkeeper when the other goalkeeper got very scared of all the big players they were playing in Spain. Changed her jersey, played very well. Also the topper of her class. This is from a speech that she gave, and is going to be giving again at something else. This is how you can contact us. Our Facebook page and YouTube are much more updated than the website. Again, thanks to Magic Bus again for having me come by, and thanks also to Subrat and the young people at AIFF. I know that I keep knighting the AIFF guys and have been something like me, but I do want to work with you guys to make it better, and especially make it better for young people. So thanks a lot, guys.
Hello, my name is Renu Kumari. I am 13 years old. I live in Upru village in Jharkhand.
Oh, hey, Renu. Put a speech.
Sir.
Okay.
हेलो, मेरा नाम नीता कुमारी है और मैं 5 साल से फुटबॉल खेल रही हूँ.
She's playing football for the last 5 years, and her name is Neeta Kumari. Okay, तो तुम लोग को अभी जवाब देना होगा कुछ questions जो आएंगे से, ठीक है? Can we invite some questions for the girls?
You can wait for the actual Q&A if you want.
Okay, we can take that a little later. Yeah. Okay, fine. Great.
आराम से बैठिए, बाद में बात करेंगे.
Thank you, Franz. I think we are indeed dealing with some serious issues, and we are all working towards making a better environment for football indeed. And just to update all our guests out here, the Australian Sports Commission has also taken an initiative to support the grassroots football in India. And we entered into a partnership with the All India Football Federation last year to support Maharashtra, Manipur and Mizoram grassroots programs. So taking forward from there, I would like to invite my next speaker, Mr. Ilya Van Holstein from Johan Cruyff Foundation.
Thank you, Rita, for the introduction. And my name is Ilya Van Holstein. I'm a managing director to the Johan Cruyff Foundation. Just a quick survey. Who of you don't know who Johan Cruyff is? Be honest. Then it's good that I've got implemented a small video about who he is. And I will just ask you to watch the video. It's about 2 minutes. There is sound. Yeah.
Johan Cruyff. He was football's enigma. Not only would he ghost past defenders like they weren't there, he would outwit them too. Like a mathematician on the field, he always managed to find another angle. There would always be another dimension to his play. He had the perfect combination of intelligence and skill. Was also a World Cup year, and Holland arrived in West Germany with Cruyff, the best player in the world at the time, and with a growing reputation as a footballing nation.
69, 70, 71, 72, 73, all these summers. The Dutch team was in the final of the FIFA. We, 5 years of nominated in Europe, we can't really look like fools. It's impossible.
In 1974, Cruyff was named European Player of the Year for a third time, as he continued his Barcelona star. For many, he's the most influential player the club has ever had. Then as head coach back at Ajax, he won the European Cup Winners' Cup in 1987, with a goal from his protégé, Marco van Basten. And when he took the job as head coach at Barcelona, Cruyff's career had come full circle. Cruyff's finest achievement in all the years he's been associated with Barcelona was to win the European Cup in 1992. Even now his life still revolves around sport. The Johan Cruyff Institute for Sport Studies has centres around the world helping athletes build their future careers. And the Cruyff Foundation helps kids who didn't have the chance to excel in sport.
The things you achieve, I mean, you see these kids and you see just don't see their handicap, just watching their eyes. It's something so nice, so beautiful. I think I'm very fortunate that I can do something for these children.
It all started on a football pitch in Amsterdam. But by the time that Cruyff has played his last game, he can be spoken about as one of the very greatest players of all time.
So that's who Johan Cruyff is, and when he, towards the end of his coaching career, he said he really thought he wanted to give something back to society that has given him so much, and obviously sports was the way to go. And he founded the Johan Cruyff Foundation. Johan Cruyff Foundation. We are all about giving children the opportunity to play wherever they want. That's what we do, and giving them the opportunity to benefit of playing sports in all the things that we've been hearing from the past couple of days, and we'll be hearing more from today and possibly tomorrow. We quickly through this slide. We work on 4 teams, which is giving every kid the opportunity to participate, which is doesn't matter if you're male or female, handicapped or not. Every kid should have the opportunity to participate in sports, because we believe, and it's always going on the project, to get kids healthier through sports, help them in their personal development. I think that the example that what just gave, it's fantastic to see the girls being proud and finding their pride back in their personality is fantastic. And improve their social skills through sports, learning to work in a team, and everything that comes with being active in sports. We do that in 3 different ways, and I'm going to zoom in on one of these 3. That's the international realization and activation of drive courts, which are small. I will talk about what they are in a minute. The other projects we support are project for children, sports project for children with a disability. This is just giving them the opportunity to play. This is not only football or soccer. This is we have a horse riding project that we support, or skiing, or whatever sport there is. And we also do some talent development programs. We have actually 3 of our kids who came from these programs that are now performing in the Sochi Olympics. And we have an ITF program which focuses on wheelchair tennis. And at the London Olympics, we had about 1/3 of the participants from the developing countries came from this program. So that's something we do in talent development. And since about a year, we upgrade schoolyards, mainly in the Netherlands, in a program that we call Schoolyard 14. 14 was Johan's number, like Jordan's 23. 14 is his number, so 14 is something that comes back everywhere. Also to give children the opportunity to play more when they're in school. Wat is het kruidwoord? What you see here, this is an example of a kruidwoord in Amsterdam that we did together with Ajax. Is a typical example of a pitch which is embedded within a more multifunctional but very urban surrounding or environment. You see the athletic track surrounded, there's some fitness equipment, and the kruidwoord is always artificial grass. Or always, in most cases, it is artificial grass. It's a public space. It's if that's possible in the country that we build. We try to make it as public as possible, so that every kid has access to the field. We always work in a very close partnership with local organizations, because what we do is we can help build the facilities, and we set some criteria as of running weekly activities on the kruidwoord. We have some programs that we run ourselves. We have a community program in which we train coaches. We have a yearly tournament called Kruidwoord 6 vs 6, which is international. But the main work and the success is created by the local partners. For example, we have a project in Israel. We work with the Paris Center for Peace. They are the success of the kruidwoord, not us. It's the facility that helps them, that attracts children. But the success is with, in this case, a local NGO that runs the program. And kruidwoords always look the same. Whether you play on the Graaf court in Sao Paulo, or on the Graaf court in Japan, or on the Graaf court in Amsterdam. They all look the same, and that is why it's interesting to connect them and organize the international tournament. The kids come from the same place, but from a very different background. They all come from the same place, Graaf court, but from a very different background. And it gives them very interesting mix and cultural diversity in which kids can learn from each other about their own culture. That's what I just talked about. It's about creating a safe place in the community where you can play freely. And it's really a platform on which the themes like together, respect, fair play, things we've been talking about during this conference are being implemented. And they culminate in the 14 rules of Johan Cruyff that are on every Graaf court. I said the number 14 is important to us, it always comes back. I don't know if it's possible to read, but it's about being a team player, it's about taking initiative, it's about helping each other, it's about your personal development, it's about social inclusion, it's taking responsibility for your own actions. And they're on every Graaf court, and there are means for the local professional or the NGO to work with, to teach the children. This is just a short or an overview of where we are working at the moment. We have over 180 Graaf courts at the moment, of which about 150 are in the Netherlands, just to give you an idea. What we've done projects almost all over the world. Yellow, including India and Argentina. These are projects that we're working on at the moment that we're hoping to develop the next year or so. As you can see, we are active from the US, where we opened the Graaf court 2 weeks ago until Japan. In a total of 15 different countries. What I just mentioned, we run a couple of programs on ourselves on the Graaf court. One of which is the Graaf Foundation Community Program, in which we really want to create role models from the community itself, having them organize their own activities.
All around the world, the Graaf courts provide young people with a place in their community to get out and do sports. It's a place where people meet and the community comes together. That's a great thing. But couldn't we be getting even more out of the Graaf courts by offering young people a stage to grow on? Absolutely. So to help give it to them, the Johan Cruyff Foundation has set up a community program. In this program, young people between the ages of 14 and 21 organize an event in their community under the supervision of a Cruyff Foundation coach. They spend 8 weeks getting to know all aspects of organizing, from planning to promotion, from financing to the closing ceremony. Giving young people responsibility boosts their ambition and self-confidence on and off the Graaf courts. And it also strengthens their bond with their community and keeps them active in the long term in other community events. We can even train them to be Graaf Foundation coaches so that they can go on to encourage and inspire the next generation. The community program brings out the best in young people so they can bring out the best in their community. Do you want to give the young people in your community a chance to grow? Send us an email or visit the website.
Over the past couple of years that we've been working on it, we've trained over 1,000 youngsters and over 100 coaches on the Graaf courts, mainly in the Netherlands, and we are now expanding it also internationally. Something I also mentioned is we try to connect the Graaf courts and connect the youngsters or the children on the Graaf courts by our Graaf 6 vs 6 tournament. This year we will host, just before the official World Cup in Brazil, we will host our own World Cup in Amsterdam, in which we get 6 teams from all over the world together, not only to play football, but mainly to learn from each other, learn about each other's cultures, and meet children from other continents in this case. Central in this tournament is respect. Respect. Every kid signs for respect. It's about respecting each other, about respecting different cultures, and respecting your opponent. Some effects and some results. about the class, what we really see is that kids play more football, that we reach about 10% to 1/3, depending on the community size but we reach about 10% to 1/3 of the kids. They go and play on the classboard, which is there. And what's important results for us, that 2/3 of the kids are very proud of their own classboard and willing to invest, which means that they can, it attracts, it's nice, it's a high quality facility, and they want to come there. And they're proud of it, they take ownership of it, and because they take ownership, you can also ask them to organize their own activities and get them really involved within the classboard and directly also within the community. Classboards stay in better condition than regular mini pitches because they're nice and the kids are proud of it. They will leave it in good shape. And I think in the Netherlands, vandalism has been a problem surrounding the facilities like this, and we see that classboards are kept in better shape than regular pitches. And they improve the social environment. If you look at the community program, it really binds young people, the self-esteem of the young people grows. They show a higher level of ambition, which was very important for us. And they really stay active in their community as they once they participate in the community program. These are just some examples. I'm going to finish off because we are in a bit of a hurry. Some examples of the project we did. We tried to get the clubs involved. We tried to get the players involved. Make them conscious of their role as a role model and the impact that they can have in the society. So we've done project with Ajax. You see some famous Dutch football players like Sneijder and like Arjen Robben who had their own classboard in their hometown in this case. We've done some fantastic project with the Dutch national team in South Africa and in Poland during the Euro 2012, which the players actually donated a classboard. We work very closely with the Dutch FA, who have their own coaching and life skills project, which is integrated within the project. And we've done some projects. You see Arsenal, we see Johannesburg, and we did a project in London. I think this is about my story. This is key. That alone you can't do anything. You have to do it together. We always try to partner with as many people and enthusiastic partners as possible, and together we make it a success. We don't want to work on our own. We need other organizations, and we want to work together. I think this is what the Young Crowd Foundation is. These are people that help, or companies that help us, and I'm willing to take any questions in the Q&A after.
Thank you, Ilya. I would start something in India as well.
I hope so.
Moving forward, I invite Dr. Abhijit Barse, CEO of Flam Soccer.
Hello everyone, and thank you so much for, I would like to thank Magics for having us here. It's an honor to be on such a well-represented board. Personally met with now a couple of years ago, and he has sort of seen us come through different phases. But before I start, I really want to appreciate the work that Franz has done so far, and the amount of efforts he has put in to do something that mostly Indians should be doing for themselves. And I can totally understand what you must be facing, because seriously it is hard work to change a lot of systems. I'm going to speak a little bit about, we've been listening to a lot of common themes here, development and social changes. I don't think I have anything new to add to it, but maybe a little bit, maybe you will be able to catch a little bit more on that. So, Slum Soccer basically started in 2001, and we started with just wanting to provide a platform to youngsters to come and play at one location. It started when our founder saw a couple of kids playing in water and he thought that this is a wonderful thing. So he went out, he gave them a ball, he asked them if they wanted to play. By the end of that day, he had distributed around 16 balls to 16 different slums in Nagpur and invited them to come and play at one location. Over the next few years, we continued to do the same. By 2004, we realized that the game is not just the game, but it is having a lot of positive impacts on people who are participating. So we just didn't want to conduct tournaments, but we wanted to get a little deeper into it. We started doing a lot more sessions, and we started to put a lot more thought into what goes inside the program. It was really one such feedback that we realized that the impact what we are having is not just limited to the mere act of playing, but the values they are learning through the game itself. One of the parents came us and told that the amount of time my kid is on the field, I am positive that he's not into anything that is dangerous or illegal to him. And he's also becoming more focused. And that was the point where we decided that we need to do more than just making them play. Ours was never an idea to become a football academy or a club that serves just football. It was using football as a tool to reach out, give them something safe to play with, and just be friends and just be okay with it. We chose football, and we started with multiple activities. The original thought was just to save playgrounds from illegal settlements that were happening around the town. So we were looking for options, and the easiest option and the most viable option was again football. The reason being that it's again the most easily accessible and the cheap game. All you need is a ball, and I know for sure that you don't even need a ball at times. I can say that now because I think in Africa they used to tie up a bunch of plastics and just use it as a ball. So we really don't need much, and I'm thankful to One World Football who have actually provided us with one of the biggest expenses that we used to incur, the indestructible ball which we're using now. So it's cheap, it's easy. I know people keep saying that you don't have enough spaces. We actually look at it in a different way. We pick the game to be played in whatever environment we find. We won't necessarily be doing 11-11. If we find a small ground, we'll do 4v4. If we find a bigger field, we'll maybe do 7v7. So for us, it doesn't have to be the game. It can be, it doesn't even end up to be a football match. It can be a simple game with a moral issue that we want to touch up with. As I said, it's very easily modifiable. With help of one of our most favorite partners, Coach Across Continents, we were able to come up with so many social messaging that we now put inside our program. And the stickiness of the game makes it so much easier to pass on these values. One of the things which we've observed so far is that when you play together, you also tend to learn together. And the learning can be shared and can be expanded to the community, which is exactly what we're doing at Slum Soccer. We're passing on the learning not just to our players, but eventually we look at the fact that it is going to go inside the community and create changes. This is, in brief, what we do at Slum Soccer. We have kids coming and playing all the time. We have a small academy. We have a youth football program that's been very recently launched in Chennai. We host an annual national tournament in which we invite other NGOs to come and take part. This year the tournament is on from 14th to 16th of February, and we have about 10 different NGOs including Magic Bus sending their team to participate in our event. We have very recently we started with the women's football program at Slum Soccer. 3 years ago we realized that this is something which we have to do. And every year we select a team from the national tournament, we train them and we send them to the Homeless World Cup, which happens every year, and this year it's going to be in Chile. The idea behind sending team to the Women's World Cup is not just to create players, because actually it's not even recognized an event like a football. It's an event that utilizes football to give a chance to a lot of people who wouldn't get a chance to play, give them a platform and be recognized as citizens of the world. I don't think I am that well qualified to talk about grassroots football development, because first of all, I am not a football person. I play basketball. But I understand that the changes that occur when a small kid comes within the system. I can say that more than we developed the football, we developed with the football as an organization. We started to see the changes that were happening. The biggest moment for us was when we started to send team for the Women's World Cup. It was a 4v4 pattern. And we started with that, and soon we realized that the kids just don't want that, they want something more. So we went on to do 5v5, the futsal thing. Then we went on to 7v7, and as of January we had our first coaches training program for 11 coaches. And that had taken us 5 years to get to this point. So it has been a slow and a consistent journey where we now claim to know a little bit more than what we started with. Yeah, I mean, most of the developments have happened mostly because we wanted to do better and better every year. So it wasn't an intention that we set out with, we want to do this in a very systematic manner. But as and when we used to interact with a whole lot of partners, we used to realize that, this is good and we need to adapt this, and we just kept doing this. And a little bit unintentionally also, we are now very proud to say that we have a system that can, we now have a pathway. Very recently, last month, we were able to tie up with the Thani Sports Club in Chennai, one of the oldest club there, who will be giving our kids a chance to play at a professional league level. This is again the team participating at the Women's World Cup. So as I said, we talk about development through football and development of football. For us, we are not interested in the one person that goes on to become the best football player. We are worried about the 99 who come to play just to enjoy the game, just to learn life skills from us. We know that some of them will become good football players. We know that they will have ambitions. And for now, we can safely say that they will get a chance to play at a professional level. For that, we've taken pathways. But again, for us, it's the community impact that matters most. Every time someone comes and plays with you, and you fight and then you resolve your conflicts on the field, we teach them. And sometimes you don't even have to teach a lot of things. The game itself teaches you how to become a team player, how to take care of your team, and you become a leader. I mean, all of them, when they start, will have something or the other issues, and when they keep continuing to come and play, most of them become more fitter. In some instances, when they join us, they are not doing simple things like taking bath, but when they start, when they are down the program and when our leaders interact with them, we find them more cleaner when they come and more positive in their outlook. Well, the sports side of development that has happened because of our intervention is, again, yes, as of recently, we can say that now they are getting a chance to play at a professional level. We still are not aiming at putting a lot on the regular FA. The opportunities that we are getting is because of what we are here for now. But yeah, we definitely want our players to go and play at much more higher levels than it started with. Through our efforts in Nagpur, we have been able to access the right to education policy, and we've been able to place a lot of our underprivileged children in proper schools because we basically root it via sports. We tell them that these kids are good in sports, we train them, and if you take them in, you will not have to worry about your sports team, and it has worked in our favor. All of them have to attend at least 2 structured sessions in which they learn not just how to play football, but how other issues work around them. And yeah, we do have structured tournaments in which you can play at a city level, at a state level, especially in Maharashtra and Chennai, where we have a good state and city setup. And you can keep playing up, and if you are good enough, you will be selected for the international team that goes every year. That's it. This was in brief about what we do at Slum Shop, and if you have questions, I'd be more than happy to answer you.
Thank you. We may now invite Mr. Paul Chattenbell, Chairman of the Delhi Youth League.
Yeah, my name is Paul Schuttenbelt. I'm founder and chairman of the Delhi Youth League. I also run a small football academy here in Delhi. My entry point here is a little bit different than most of you. Most of you have a development objective and you come into football with that development objective. I come in here with a football objective, and my objective is to have as many children to play football as possible. And we take development in that football objective. So it's a little bit the other way around than most of the presentations here. I would like to start with a video, please. This one. Video. This one. The Delhi Youth League, we started it January 2013, and we started very modest with 26 teams. In Delhi, at the fields of the DPS Akipuram, one of the most prestigious schools in Delhi. One of the objectives was that at least 30 or 35% of the teams should come from a community background, should come from a background disadvantaged or weaker economic sections. There's many words how it is described here in Delhi. So Magic Bus, for example, is playing in our league. Another foundation, Kuntum Foundation, is playing in our league. And they play together with kids who are not from a disadvantaged background, or from either international schools or well-off schools. And I think that's one of the strong points of this league, that these children meet on Sunday, every Sunday, and they play against each other. And on the fields, there's no difference in color, in race, in cultural background, in religious background, and everybody speaks with his or her feet. We started with 28 teams, and in the season 2, that was a short season from January to April, and in the second season we now have 60 teams, so that almost tripled in less than a year's time. We could have had 100 or 120 teams here in Delhi if I just had the fields to do it. And that's a key issue then. Facilities, are they available? I think there are enough facilities in Delhi. And I'm sure there's the same thing in Mumbai or Bangalore or any other city. But are they accessible? That's the big issue. All schools have facilities, but they won't allow anybody to play on it. The NGO teams come in our league, and they come in for free. The well-off teams pay, and they partly subsidize the teams who come from a weaker economic background. We also have sponsors. who support those teams. We give everybody a shirt, we give the NGO teams a meal, we sometimes provide, if necessary, provide transport to them, and then they play on a Sunday. 70% of the teams in season 1 were from an Indian background, 30% foreign, and 32% came from a weaker economic background. I think in season 2 these figures are a little bit different. You can see Wim here standing with the referees. The referees are, in the first season, came from Khartoum Foundation, and we have a program also with them in order to become referees and also role models in their societies, and also they gain a little bit of income through the refereeing on Sunday. In season 2, as I said, we grew to 60 teams in 6 age group. We start at under 8, which is 6 and 7, and we go up to under 19. About 1,000 children are involved, spread over 3 fields. 35% of the teams come from weaker economic sections, 75% is Indian, and 25% is expatriates. And sponsors pay for the NGO teams, and those players coming from a richer background, or the parents of those players, pay for the NGO teams as well. There's a little bit of an overview of where the teams are coming from. In principle, everybody can play. If you have a group of friends, you organize yourself, you register, you can play. Schools can play, academies can play, and we have also NGOs playing for us. If you can't pay, we will support you. If you can pay, we want you to pay. But in principle, everybody should be able to play for that. Now, what is one of the bottlenecks? Is the duration. We have mostly, in most of the age group, we have 10 or 12 teams. They play each other twice. They play about 18 to 20 matches. That is one of the bottlenecks because nobody is used to do it. I come from the Netherlands, and in the Netherlands, it's very normal. You play a season long, you play 20 matches, about 20 matches, and then you play your tournaments and your cups and everything. So you play a 9-year-old, 10-year-old boy, Wim, correct me if I'm wrong, doing 40 and 50 matches in a season. And it is necessary to develop as a footballer. Here, people are used to tournaments. 6 weeks, a weekend, 4 weeks. Now, one of the things of the Delhi Youth League is that you have the stamina to go through the whole year. And I think it's extremely important. And in some of our age groups, not the strongest teams win, but those who are best organized and have the stamina to come back every Sunday with their best players. And not say, okay, today, I'm tired, or I had a late evening, especially with the under-19s, and I won't play. So while that is one of the qualities of the league, in my opinion, it's also one of the problems. Because we have a climate problem here in Delhi. It's either too cold, it's too warm, it's too wet, it's too dry. We have the exam period. If the exam period is here, kids can't leave the house anymore. So to play 20 weeks in a row is one of the issues. But from a football perspective, in my opinion, absolutely necessary. Age cheating is, of course, another big issue. I've seen 15 years old who could be my father, and that creates sometimes a big problem. Also, we cannot check that completely because, especially from the NGO teams, the children don't know exactly how old they are. So we have a flexible approach in that. We try to manage it. I think there's between 5 and 10% of the players in the league are actually too old for where they play. As long as they don't win, I don't have any problems with it. Because if you win as a 15-year-old in the under-13 group, that's a little bit tricky. Big problem, and it's not different anywhere in the world. I think in the Netherlands it's a big problem as well, are the parents. Winning is so important. I think winning is important. I always want to win, but to what extent? And parents go very far sometimes, and they think if their son or daughter loses with 8-0, it's harder for the parents than it's actually for the kids. And well, they express their opinions about that on the field, to the referees, all kind of problems we have there. On the Monday morning, the emails I get on what happened on the Sunday, you don't want to know it. Facilities is a problem. We have 3 fields. As I said, I could have doubled the league if I would have more fields. Not that these fields are not around, but are they accessible? The nearest stadium, I think, is empty 80% of the time. But They won't let us play there. The refereeing is an issue. The quality of the refereeing is not always good. But I always say if refereeing would be good, Holland would be world champion and not Spain. So that's a given. That's a given we have to live with. But it's sometimes very difficult for players and parents to accept it. And I mentioned that already. Holidays, exams, because of the multicultural nature of our league. People have different holidays, have different exam periods, whatever. So to have a 20-week league is sometimes very difficult to do. But of course, there's also a lot of results. We have 1,000 children playing football every Sunday. They improve their football skills, of course, by playing considerably, because many of them are only training and sometimes not playing, and you have to play in order to become better. The exposure to the NGO team. Suddenly, Kutum Foundation, and I'm happy that Kutum is here. Last Sunday, again, beat DPS Akipuram, one of the richest and most well-established schools in Delhi and in India. And that's sometimes difficult for these schools to accept. This bunch of Kutum players who come there on a Sunday with a big bus and then they beat my child, and that's something. But the Kutum players gain a lot of confidence that suddenly they can win against players that they consider to be from another planet or sometimes, but now they see they're not. We of course also provide a meal to many of the players, and there's a big multicultural and religious exchange on the field, including my own 2 boys who meet other children that they would not that easily meet under normal circumstances. What is the future? We have 1 league now in Delhi. We are planning to have 10 leagues in 2015, and it's maybe ambitious, but to have 50 leagues in 2017. Not only in Delhi, but also in other cities and states in India. We're talking at the moment to a sponsor that might support us getting there. And then that will be interesting. Then the champion of Delhi can play against the champion of Bangalore or the champion of Hyderabad. And they can play against each other, and then that champion again can play maybe against the champion of Bangkok soccer leagues or in Europe, and that's how you get up there and you get better level. A players development fund. With my academy, we're working on that one. We had a talent scout, and we now have 35 players who come in and train for free. We would like to further develop that, so that those players who cannot afford to go to an academy or to a school or don't have a group of friends to play with can still play in one of those academies and can still travel maybe to Europe to play against better players of those countries. We will remain to have at least 35% of the teams coming from weaker economic sections, and we are talking at the moment of linking with the Sports Authority of India, who will hopefully help us in getting more fields and getting more teams. So this is just a little contribution at the moment. Hopefully we will grow. I think it is important that we don't focus only on development, but we focus on football for us, and that we take development as an important component. We provide meals, we provide transport. We would like to do more. We would like to educate, for example, more referees coming from an NGO background. Somebody mentioned another program. Yeah, for example, do filming and photographing. Let children from the NGOs do that. But we don't have the means and the resources to support that. So we would like to do more on the development side, but football will remain our first entry point. Thank you.
Together with you, and we should exchange ideas with some of the NGOs who are present here, and we can work on it. I now invite Mr. Arunava Chaudhary to address us, and he is one of the known faces in the football world, and I think on Indian football, there are very few people who are as knowledgeable as him.
Thank you, Rekha. Well, I've got the difficult job actually putting all of this, what we've been talking today, a little together from a general perspective, because there's a lot of work being done on a number of parallel platforms in the formal and informal football system, through clubs, through academies, through NGOs, through schools, and through other forms of, for example, what Paul is doing here in Delhi. And how do you bring that together? And what are the issues in that? I had the pleasure last week of meeting and speaking in Germany, where I stay, with a long discussion with the FIFA General Secretary Jerome Bart about India. And FIFA has clearly said, and FIFA repeats it, not only him but also the FIFA President, Mr. Blatter, that India is very, very important to FIFA, and that the Under-17 World Cup in 2017 should be a stepping stone for India and its development. But there are a lot of questions which are raised, and especially after that was awarded about 2 months back. What does it mean for the development of football in India at the grassroots level? And does this mean better structure for a developmental football pyramid? Because at the end of the day, if we're talking about grassroots either leads to recreational players, or in an ideal world, in a pyramid, to an elite who go on to maybe become professional footballers, or maybe go on to represent the country. One of the things which have happened, Rob Barnes is here with us. He developed the first ever program under Lakshya 2022, a development program on football in India, which was never there. So football has been here in India longer than even in some countries in Europe. But the problem at the moment is due to also of the structure that the AFF has, or rather does not have, if you compare it to the size of the country, is that its main focus is elite player development in the age groups of 12 to about 19, where you start off with the regional academies and then have a national academy. Now, that's a very, very positive, but on the other side there's a downside because of the structure of the federation, the funding of the federation, and which is very, very key, because the AFF is trying to spread the game across the country. Now there are pockets, as some of you might know, where football has been or is very, very popular. You speak about Bengal, you speak about Goa, you speak about Kerala. The success of the Northeast, which is, I think, one of the biggest stories of the last 10, 15 years. But I don't see it addressing actually the issues of non-registered clubs, organizations or institutions who are actually working in the football field. France had an issue last year where AFF could not help him when he was trying to send the team to Spain, as an example. And the AFF also is, like FIFA is depending on the Asian Football Confederation, and then depending on the All India Football Federation in that pyramid structure of international football. It depends on the states. And a lot of states, if you speak to the state secretaries or even the presidents, they will say, what's the use of youth development? There is no need of youth development. A lot of states hope to send the best players to the Santosh Trophy or to the National Youth Championships and get the best possible result. But player development, if it happens, it's great, but it's not their focus. Now, and the other problem that I've said, and a lot of private initiatives are there, how do you integrate them into the official system? Or how does the official system embrace the projects which are there? And how do you gain from their insights, the knowledge? We've spoken about IVA, we've heard about what Slum Soccer does. Then Youth League is another example that we're talking about here. How do you get them into mainstream football? The other problem is there are certain states which are very, very forward-thinking. Mizoram is, I think, a prime example, where a small state in the Northeast has done a lot of things when it comes to grassroots football. They've started their own professional league. They have 3 artificial turfs. The state government promotes it. But the problem at the moment is the size. And the question is, when you talk about elite development, you just have a handpicked number of boys who go through the system, where on the other side, we should actually work towards having as many kids as possible playing football in this country. And we're not talking about tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, we're talking about millions in an ideal case scenario, maybe 10, 15, maybe 20 million kids who are regularly playing football across the country. And then again, you have the pyramid structure where the best are filtered through to the top. I feel the biggest problem when it comes to football development is most probably the size of India, where you need a program which goes through the length and breadth of this country, but due to the problems of the structure that we have, where you're dependent on the states, it's a matter of funding, which is, I think a lot of NGOs have the same problem, but that's the biggest problem that we have in India. And on one side, of course, we see that we have a system being developed at some of the professional clubs, at the I-League clubs, at the football nurseries, which can be training centers, football schools and academies, but also where you work with NGOs, children in rural India, but also to areas where we don't even think about. There's a project that a friend of mine runs in Kerala, SEPT, where their most talented kids actually come from tribal areas. They're not kids from the cities, but actually from tribal areas. And as I said, millions of kids, it doesn't matter if it's boys and girls, but we mainly focus on boys in India at the moment, need to be coming through a system, and we need qualified coaching. I know the FF has been working on it, and is working on it to get as many people through the D&C license courses, but that's only a start. And I quote someone that has said it over the weekend, Paul Leitner, that we actually need also foreign coaches for the youngest of kids in India, for the kids at 6 or 7, to actually teach them what is right, because only through that we can become better. And the national team is an example where we've always somehow performed better under foreign coaches than under Indian coaches, and actually no one has ever asked the question why that is the case. So it's important that we start at the local level, we move on to the district, to the state, the regional and to the national level, and through that find the best young talent. I always talk about the development pyramid. That's something which I've learned in Germany, where I'm born and brought up, and where they've, of course, changed a lot of things, and it's similar to what other countries do in Europe, and that's why they're so successful in football. It doesn't matter if we're talking about Germany, if we're talking about the Netherlands, we're talking especially about the Spanish system, which is a very, very interesting thing to see. And we have to be realistic. Every 4 years when there's a World Cup, we'll have that question again this summer, why aren't we playing the World Cup? Well, development somehow does not happen overnight. It needs, I would say, a minimum of 7 to 10 years. In a worst case scenario, most probably you need 15, 20, maybe even longer years. And we are not a Japan or a South Korea, which are very, very well structured, where you have had programs which have proven that they can develop, or a country like Australia, where Rob has worked as well, where they've actually worked on long-term development programs and have actually succeeded with those. The biggest issue at the moment seems to be, when you talk about development of football in India, is finance. Certain people are willing to invest at the professional level. Certain people are willing to invest money for players. If you look at the I-League, the Indian players are most probably the most overpaid players in the world of football. But on the other side, the issue is grassroots development depends on financial inputs. It will not get you the glory that you will hope. It will take a long time to develop. And you need appropriate manpower to manage on the administrative side, on the coaching side, to implement such a program on the national scale. And I think there's a need of that. I've written thousands, and most probably there should be the need of hundreds of thousands of coaches with the appropriate coaching licenses so that they can run the program. Well, thank you, and I hope I've given you a little different of a spin or perspective on football development.
We open the house for questions. But before that, just to summarize, I think we are seeing a lot of football happening outside of our football recognized club and team structure. So there is a larger question on how we should institutionalize the informal football which is happening so widely across the country. So I'm happy to have suggestions from the panelists, from the audience, and of course we are open for questions. Okay, there.
My name is Rohit, and I am an independent researcher working in the field of sport for development. I'm a firm believer in the power of sports to change the life of people, and especially children. And every time I see kids like this and hear about the stories, this this belief is further solidified. I have been attending these sessions for last 2 days, and nobody has touched upon the challenges and the limitations that sports for development projects face. So maybe Franz or maybe Dr. Parse could reflect upon this. What are the challenges and limitations for sports for development programs?
I'm going to pass that question off to our young friends here because they know as well or better than I do because they're the ones who are playing. I haven't played on the Indian national team, but Anita has played in the Indian national camp for 3 months. So she'll tell you about some of those challenges. I think everybody has kind of touched on this. So Anita, national camp में तुम्हारी experience क्या था?
जब मैं नेशनल कैंप के लिए गई थी और युवा से 3 लड़की गई थी, मेरे साथ 2 फ्रेंड थी, एक का नाम सुहानी, एक मनीषा। हम लोग को लगा था कि हम लोग फर्स्ट कैंप करने जा रहे हैं, अच्छा लगेगा। और वहाँ हम लोग के साथ नेशनल कैंप के कोच थे ना, वो अच्छा बर्ताव हम लोग के साथ नहीं किए थे। मेरी फ्रेंड थी शिवानी, और मैच कर रही थी, थोड़ा सा मिस्टेक हुआ तो उसको डांटने लगे और मारे भी, और बहुत से लड़की को भी मारे थे 3-4 बार। और जब हम लोग का कुछ भी प्रॉब्लम होता था, जैसे कि गिर गए तो पैर सब में लगते थे और पेन भी आता था, तो हम लोग बोलते थे कि हम लोग का पैर पेन कर रहा है, तो आइस चाहिए, बोलते थे कि हाँ नहीं कर नहीं देते थे। और जब एवरी इवनिंग को मैचेस होता था तो मेरे दोनों फ्रेंड खेलती थी पर हम नहीं खेलते थे, तो हम बोले जाके कि हम भी खेलना चाहते हैं, तो बोले कि नहीं, यहाँ पे बहुत सारे लड़कियाँ मौका नहीं देते, जब बाहर बैठो और चुपचाप देखोगे, नहीं तो फ्रांस को कॉल करके बता देंगे। और जब हम लोग का रूम में फ्रेंड सब आती थी हम लोग से बात करने के लिए, तो आ जाते थे कोचे सब, अब डांटने लगते थे हम लोग को, बोलते थे कि फ्रेंड क्यों वहाँ बुलाते हैं रूम में हल्ला करने के लिए, फ्रांस को भी कॉल करके बता देंगे। और बोलते थे कि हमेशा के फ्रांस को कॉल करके बता देंगे, हम लोग को बहुत डर लगता था वहाँ।
So she's trying to say that when they attended the national camp, they were not treated well. They were hurt at times, and then they were not attended properly. The coaches were rude to the children, and a whole lot of issues around it. So they were not treated well. That's the first thing that sport should, and that's why development and sport is what we talk about. So it's really so. फिर तुम लोगों ने क्या किया फिर उसको तुम लोग फ्रांस को बताया फिर कि ऐसा हमारे साथ हुआ? And did you take it up France later? How did you handle this situation? Because it is certainly not approved.
We had at that time a great volunteer from MIT. She's from India, from Delhi, and so for the most part she was taking the calls from the girls. We had 3 girls at the camp together from UA, and they were probably 3 of the only kids who were actually under 13 on the under 13 team. And the coaches were very upfront about taking over age players. They'll tell you right to your face, other countries do it, so we have to do it as well. And the girls were calling us, saying that they didn't like it there, but they weren't saying why. And finally I flew out with some pairs of shoes because the girls' shoes had broken in Ahmedabad. There were a lot of coaching staff, and we would get them new shoes. I sent some shoes that were the wrong size. So finally I just said, I don't know what's going on out there, I just got a flight, went out. And then at that point, we walked around the complex, and the girls started to talk about what their issues were. And I said, I want you to take them out of camp, and I wasn't allowed to.
Paul, would you also like to throw some light on what kind of challenges which you have been facing on ground? Maybe
Well, one thing that you forgot to translate was she said that the girls were actually hit, physically abused by the coach.
I think this was on the television also when the whole program was done, and it was very surprising that the panchayat to whom
That's a totally different issue. These girls have been hit multiple times. One was by a local panchayat, local government guy, when they were trying to get the birth certificates to go to Spain. And then the national team thing was completely separate. It was two totally different incidents.
And was there any difference after they won and they came back to Jharkhand? That's more important to see. Did it change, or was there any apology or any sort of thing that came to you?
No, nothing really, but just denial from the kind of higher ups at the AIFF.
Abhijit, are there similar or sort of some challenges which I'm sure you know our system, how it works?
So, apparently, I know what you're facing, but I would not go into those problems because yes, we do face it. I would rather go into more of broad-based problems that we face, and I would say that we are not a specific field. The sports for development is not a recognized field of work, especially in India. So when it comes to approaching or going in for funding opportunities, we are not classified as a social work because we are using sport, which is again because of our cultural mindset, we cannot call sports as an effective tool. So that sort of problem we always face. Secondly, the type of work that we are trying to do needs individuals who are not only trained as a sports person but also as mentors to begin with. They can not necessarily be good football players, but they have to be good people who can work with our candidates because they come from a very underprivileged background and they have to have more expertise. So these are the limitations that we usually face.
Right. Just for the information of all people here, sports does come under the CSR bill and Act now, and the Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs, which is a partner of the Next Steps Conference, we are very serious. We are having very serious discussions on how to promote companies to use sports for CSR deployment. So I think that will somewhere we will at least have a pathway. Paul, would you like to take a question on that, or would we move forward on how Delhi Youth League? Is it difficult to operate on ground, or is it?
It's the sports-minded thing. As I said, if there are exams, children are not allowed to leave the house. What I would say as a parent, I would say, let the boy play football for an hour. His head is empty, and he can study much harder after that. And then that goes through all the steps. It's the support the children get from the parents is limited, and I think that doesn't matter whether you're poor or rich or where you're from. In general, that support is limited, and as a child, you need that support. I think if you ask Bajrang Bhutia, for example, he took a very brave step. He also, was very difficult because first of all, he didn't get the support of his parents to go and to play regional and to take that further. I think that's very important that the children get the support of their parents, even if it doesn't result in becoming a professional football player. I think sport is good for children. I think there's research done that your intellectual capacity increases if you do an hour of sports in a day. So sports is good, but here it's only like, if you become a professional cricketer and you earn your money with it, then maybe. But who's become rich with football? Nobody yet.
That's a myth.
As players.
I think the Indian players are the most overpaid. I mean, if you look at the salaries, in Europe they get scared when they hear what the salaries of the players are looking at.
Well, maybe, but it's not on the first thing of the mind of the parent is that you should go, and I think that's not important. You should support your children to do sports.
Yeah, hi Paul, I have a question to you. Yeah. How different are you with so many leagues up here,
I think there is no other league.
No, there is a DIFL.
The DIFL is not a proper league.
It's not a proper league?
No, it's very recreational, where
my child is playing 7 years and he's a professional footballer.
Sorry?
My child is playing DIFL for 7 years,
yeah. And
they have 1,600 children playing. They have 6 divisions, and it's been happening for 9 years.
No, they don't have 1,600 players playing anymore after we started. It's a recreation league where children are put
Nobody
together.
has more insight of the IFL more than me because I provide them 4 pitches. And the only man who has 4 pitches in Delhi
I
in
was
one location.
a committee member of the IFL, so I also know 1 or 2 things about the IFL.
Just want to know what is so different
Can you let
about
me
your
answer, please? You asked me a question. Okay, thank you. The IFL is purely recreational. It has a role to play, I think. Before the UIL, there was nothing else. There was only the IFL. So your son is grown through the ranks there, and he's probably very talented. So that's very good. From a European football background, I think they're doing all the wrong things in terms of football. In terms of size, 11 aside for very small children. They mix children of different abilities into one team. That's not what I would do from a football background. I also don't think that they are big anymore. It's also a short league. It's only 10 weeks, and that's exactly very similar to many tournaments. You have the Subroto Cup. We have all kinds of tournaments and cups which are short, and I think it's very important that we go from October to April, and it's very important to have that time.
It's a 4-month league.
It's a 10 weekends league.
It's a 4-month league.
Okay, I think we can take that offline. Any more questions, please? Subrat, yeah.
My son played in it, and I was a committee member. So.
Yeah. Okay. The mic is with him, and then.
A point for Arunava, especially on the point that you mentioned in your presentation about linking private initiatives to the federation. I mentioned this in my presentation earlier, which obviously I think you missed, was that we are now coming up with what we call as a certification program. So as long as a private initiative satisfies and fulfills a certain criteria that the AIF and the state associations set, they can get their program and their grassroots centers or schools or clubs certified with the state associations and indirectly with us. Also, on the lines of coach development, I would like to add that we have developed our own AIF grassroots course, which we have run 13 of them now across the country in 1 year, which is not a bad record considering we started this project just a year ago. So obviously there's a lot of things that's going on with the AIF grassroots department, the technical department as a whole. So, but I think it's important here that we don't turn this into an AIF bashing session. Sorry for my words, but because there is a lot of things that's happening, a lot of things that should have been done in the past have not been done. We don't want to brood over that. Yes, of course. But the important thing is to acknowledge the challenges, acknowledge the effort, and move forward from here. That's what I think.
You're right, but on the other side, a lot of projects don't want to be recognized by you guys, and I think that would be my worry. That would be a serious worry.
Sorry, I didn't get it.
You're saying, you're right, that you've done, you first want to do it with the academies.
It can be a school, it can be an amateur club, whoever runs grassroots program.
Yeah, but the other problem on the other side is, that's the sad part, I feel at least, is that there's a lack of trust in the AFF or the establishment, as some of the people would call it, that they don't want to be actually recognized by you guys.
But these sort of sessions then won't help build the trust.
No, I'm just saying, that is, but you have to, the biggest problem I feel is when every time I come back from Europe into India, is that there is a lack of open discussion in India. That you tell people in the face what the issues are, and then try to solve the issues.
At least from our experience, I can say in our project states, we're very happy with the feedback. We've not yet received a negative feedback. It's all about, yes, it's a new thing, it's a new concept, it's never been done before in a country like India, and I like to say, and I may be wrong, but we don't run a country, we practically run a confederation, because India is like 33 countries in one country, so it's not an easy task. But yes, there's an effort, there's a step, so in the few years to come, we should see a much positive picture.
Yeah, I'm just extending what he was saying. I'm just curious about that. He said among the kids that went for the camp, the 3 were the only ones who were actually under 13. And when the question was asked, he said, the answer given was that in these tournaments outside India, most kids are overage. Is that true? I mean, age fudging is a massive problem in India, but I don't think it's a regional, when you go for regional tournaments, is that also the case? It is. So
It's not a region, it's a global thing.
So all over the world, everybody is like...
Take Europe out mostly, but rest of the world, I would say it's share everywhere. I mean, even the Brazilians play under 20 World Cup with players who are over 20 years of age.
Lazio Roma yesterday signed the so-called under 17, I think it's Ghanaian. But if you look at him, he's close to 30. That's Lazio Roma, that's a professional Italian club. They just signed him yesterday. Look at his picture. He looks older than you.
Just taking Rohan's question forward regarding football, positive and negative. I think there is a lot of negative to football also, because I run a grassroots program in Galway and I do tournaments with the community, the kids, the boys form their own team. Similar to the Delhi League, just we haven't branded it that way. And the drawback with football is I think a country has also gotten involved because of the match in Central America. So there can always be that the community can get together, but if it's not controlled, the referees don't do their job well. I have seen boys fight. They have friends, but they go out and then they bang each other. It's not in the ground, they get boys. So yes, football can be positive, but if it's not controlled, or any sport can have negative. And second thing is, with sport you can build confidence, but it can also break confidence, thinking, oh, I can't do it, because I've gone through that so many times. I chose a college where I wanted to play football, but I didn't get in the team because there were better players, and I thought of dropping out of studies. But then I was too strong to come back again, and I did play for college again. So yes, we have to recognize that. We just can't go gala and say, oh, everything's good, but it's a double-edged sword. It cuts both ways. It can build confidence, it can break confidence. And I have seen this happen a lot more times. And the second thing, Aruna, you said there are hand-picked players. I think there are hand-picked coaches also in there. And another thing is, I've also seen that now there's a new income. I'm from Mumbai, so they have planned that they want to, that every school team has to have a D-licensed trainer, if I'm not wrong. But our Maharashtra team doesn't have a qualified coach who's a head coach right now going for the Santosh Trophy. So that's such a thing. I think accountability starts from top and not from the down. Because right now you say kids have to have D-licensed trainers in schools, which is not serious. But then if you're looking at serious football, right now the Santosh Trophy team coach is not any license. Respect to him for whatever, but he's not a licensed coach. So, or the chief selector, whatever you name him, you give him 10 jargons. So yeah, I think they're hand-picked coaches also, who pick those hand-picked players, and it's all hand-picked in the end.
Hello? Yeah, just want to add up. I listened to quite a number of the presenters up there. I think your Core Foundation is spectacular. And I just want to say that as much as we are involved with sports development in terms of football, in terms of getting the girls playing, stuff like that, we also have to be a little bit careful how we involve them, be it academics, be it leagues and stuff like that. Sometimes these kids, when they are involved in this win at all cost sort of game, it can be very devastating. And as I said yesterday, myself, I was a professional football, I was not down, but I was just lucky, I was combining school and sport. And so it got to a point that I gave it to the other track so that I can now pay attention to myself. So a bit of sports for development elements where these kids are engaged in other developmental aspects of life should be inculcated. It is very, very dangerous to have this mindset. Some people say sports development is brainwashing. You get the kids on this track, play football, win, do this, and then by football is you're going to be knocked down. Your career can just come to an end. Yeah, and there's struggle. So I just want to urge those running the football leagues, those having that community, bringing the girls together, this little bit of portion, we should engage sports for development element in our running. And I think that's where the Breakaway Foundation and Institute has done very well.
Thank you. This is the last question we'll be able to take because we have to break for lunch. Okay.
Hi. My question is to Paul. I know that youth tournaments are a big part of grassroots development, and I've tried it. I've tried to get sponsors in my city for my college and even my club, but that didn't happen. So could you just elaborate on how you got your sponsors or how you got your funding for the...
Well, there was big support from the Dutch embassy. They started it. They gave me the initial money to start, and they supported the NGO teams. And we could start like that, and then we had fees from those who can afford, and all that came together, and it was easy. And once people saw what we were doing, it wasn't too hard, because I'm now focusing on football, but before that I had a job next to it. So I didn't really put a lot of effort in getting sponsors. I think if I would I would be able to get much more. I don't see that as the major problem, and there's a lot of money around in India. And also, if they see that you're doing something that makes sense, people are willing to support it, and you put an effort in there. So I think that's for girls football should not be at all. Yeah, we want to start a separate girls league as well. We don't have the numbers yet.
Getting money, even whatever tournament it is, it's for kids between 6 to 12, or even if it is under 14 or under 16, it's very difficult. Someone like me, they look at my face and they think that, okay, this girl is young, she doesn't have anything, why should we give her money? So, age matters.
I didn't see it as maybe it's my face then, maybe. I didn't get that as a problem.
Sorry, we move to the next question. Yeah, Joseph and Franz. Sorry, we have to close the session there. We can discuss it offline later.
Hi, I also have a couple of questions for Paul, because I want to ask, how do you ensure the girl participation, and how many percent of the girls will come to the football in the weekend on the field, and who are the coaches? How many coaches for how many children? And then do you have do they work for volunteering or they have to get paid? And also you also said for some player, if they can pay for the fee to join, it would be good. How about the one who cannot pay? Is it the one who can pay the fees? Do they feel that the one who cannot be not able to pay for the fee to join the football, is it unfair or something? And for the referee, who will be the referee, and then how we train those people to be a referee for the children? Yeah, thank you.
I should have written them down because I cannot remember that. Let's start with the girls. I think girls and boys play together in the same team, and you see in the younger age group that's normally not a problem. But as soon as they go to under 11, under 13, that becomes an issue. So, if you ask me, I don't think there's enough girls playing at the moment. That's why we're thinking of setting up a separate girls-only league, which is very high on my personal agenda, that I get that done. The problem there is we don't have the numbers to have a separate girls league. But we're talking to some other people, and hopefully October, January, we might start with smaller numbers and smaller age groups. If you put more age groups together, you can maybe start something. So it's high on the agenda, not yet and not enough. So very important issue. Payment, as I said in the presentation, if you cannot afford to pay, you don't pay. And you're subsidized either by the Dutch embassy or our sponsors, or by the fees that those who can afford pay. So that all comes together, so you subsidize players who cannot afford. In principle, everybody can play. It's always difficult to make the distinction who can pay and who cannot pay. That's sometimes difficult. So that's why we mainly work through NGOs that we know and that we work with and that are reliable, like Magic Bus, like Kutum, like Mantan Foundation. They have these NGOs. We know they take children on from a disadvantaged background, and they cannot afford to pay, and they come in for free, and we provide them with shirts and meals and transport.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
there are many more.
Last bit before lunch, but I mean, this is just a response to what Subrat said. You know that let's not turn it into a bashing session. I think that's that is important. And I was very careful to frame my presentation and not that way. But I think that we've got some suggestions which are pretty important. And one of those is that the same coaching staff that Nita is talking about is still coaching, as far as I know, that under 13 or under 14 team. And so I think that these are important points to raise, because we're talking about grassroots development. If we're going to do that in a real way and not just fake it in hotel ballrooms, then we've got to listen to what the kids have to say. And we've got to take their suggestions and have a feedback mechanism so that little kids who are playing, and girls especially, can report back on their experiences. And I don't know if what that takes is maybe rich kids and upper middle class kids getting onto these teams and then them reporting to their parents and then their parents making a big fuss about it. I hope not. I hope that the AIFF can move ahead, as Russ talking about drafting a child protection policy, with something real where the kids are actually really reporting back and not where the head of the AIFF is saying it's not important at this time. That's my suggestion.
Thank you, Franz. With that, we would... okay, Ron.
Just one reaction. I have never heard about it. So he has gone to the wrong people. If he's gone to me, the problem is solved. So by this set, it is solved.
Right. Look, I think we all have gathered here for a positive conversation and to find out ways. And we are such a huge community now. I mean, if we all put it together, I think we can just go to the next level altogether. So with that, I end the session over here, and thank you to all of the panelists here. Thank you for coming from all the parts of the world, actually, and gathering here to discuss Indian football. That's indeed very exciting. And we have an announcement to the organizers, and then we break for lunch.
Hello, there are 3 announcements. One is one of the participants has misplaced his laptop somewhere here. So if somebody finds a laptop bag, a black laptop bag, please contact any of the Magic Plus volunteer. The second is the lunch break will only be for 35 to 40 minutes because we have to meet for the next session. And the third is we have planned for a field visit in the evening. So I'm requesting everyone to get yourself registered and choose the place where you want to visit. The visit will be followed by dinner, and the same can be done at the information desk. Thank you. So we'll see you after 45 minutes.
Bye.